Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the great North. We are in Iceland this week, and we had some pretty interesting results that came our way. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined as always by Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Great. And we are joined by fellow Division 4 member. We've actually had a couple of matches against each other. Nakiro, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Really excited to talk about this week in the Reddit League. And unfortunately, we're not in the same division this season, so we don't get to play each other anymore for that. But we'll see how we did respectively in our own divisions. So let's start off with Division 1 and their results in Iceland. And yeah, Calamity, pretty decent all around, but yeah, kind of still struggling without much practice to get a win.
Yeah, he actually got a good result this week, but still just two places short of a bonus point there. So still going to end up on 0 after this week. Ice not doing amazingly considering it's his home country, but still got a win because Mr. Blue dropped quite a few more points. Apart from that, Chicago also had a crucial performance. Not his first win just yet, but 2 points to take home against Blinky is a pretty impressive result. Blinky therefore still stays winless 4 weeks in. I don't think any of us would have thought that would happen, but here we are. And Verdok taking home 3 points for one of the worst free scores in the division for the second time this season, bringing back memories of his season 1 where he kind of had luck go his way multiple times to end him up in a playoff spot there. And yeah, our match of the week, Raidman against Boxer, the repeat of last season's final, ended in a draw, as probably expected. But if it had been a map in a final, Boxer would have grabbed the win there with 60 more points than Raidman.
Yeah, definitely Nakiro. That matchup, not disappointing. Both players not even dropping 100 points.
Yeah, that's true. What I see also there is that the score of Bulgur is a bit underwhelming, I would say. I don't know what happened there. Well, other than that, yeah, pretty good score around. Apart from Simi, of course, and Division 1 really living up to these expectations.
Definitely. Well, let's take a look at the Division 1 table after 4 weeks, and we're pretty much about at that halfway mark, given that there are only 9 weeks of regular competition. Raidman and Boxer keep their places at the top of the table. Not a whole lot shuffling. Mr. Blue with his loss and Ice with his win are only ones that really kind of shuffle around a bit. Blinky drawing with Chicago, but still enough to move up a place in this one. Yeah, Calamity, lots of draws, even in countries like Iceland, these first 4 weeks.
Yeah, because we see such high scores in Division 1, it's kind of expected that we see many draws as well. And so far, we didn't have either the most difficult of countries or the most difficult of seeds. In the one country in Guatemala that could have been difficult, we had a very easy seed for Division 1, which kind of explains why we've got so many draws here. Little fun fact about Blinky, he's now got 7 points without a win. Chicago is actually the closest to that, who's got 3 points without a win. And then we have to go all the way to Division 5 for Mr. Fish, who's got 1 point without a win. And everyone else who doesn't have a win is on 0 points. But yeah, great week for Ice and Chicago, who closed up the gap again a bit and are now back into the fight to keep themselves out of the relegation zone. They caught up with Bulgur. And even Mr. Blue, who so far hadn't had the greatest of seasons, seems in reach now.
Yeah, definitely. Nakiro, any thoughts on how your fellow Frenchmen are doing? 4 of them in this top division.
Well, yeah, I would say that apart from Bulgur, I think they're doing pretty well. Especially Orpheus, I think none of us would have seen, especially after his match against Blinky, in 3rd position right now. So I'm pretty proud of him, of my teammate. I expect Blinky to maybe bridge the gap in the next week. I know him, and I know he's a really strong competitor, so I think he's here to win this division. yeah, of course, Simi. Unfortunately for him, he was close to get at least 1 or 2 points in the last 2 weeks. So I hope he managed to catch up a bit and avoid relegation, even though he's pretty demotivated. I have heard. So yeah, nothing. And of course, Rainman and Mucha and Boxa, which are really, really on top right now. So yeah, and very interesting.
Definitely, yeah. It just shows you how tough Division One is. A player like Simi, even if he puts up good scores, that little bit of practice that you really need to get some points, showing itself, and just even a stellar player not able to really pick up too many points without a lot of extra work in Division One. Well, the fixtures for next week don't get any easier for most of them. Of course, it's very tight, and we've got some pretty interesting matchups. No French derbies, unfortunately. Calamity, but some pretty nice matchups, including a very important one towards sort of the bottom of the table. Chicago and Ice will be a big one.
Yeah, that's definitely a very big duel. We've said it a couple times in the past. Chicago doesn't really have the much time to practice right now, so maybe Ice is in a bit of an advantage there. But Botswana is an interesting country, and I think Chicago, even without that much practice, could still do well if the seed lends itself to it. Apart from that, Orpheus still undefeated actually this season, and he's gonna have a pretty tall task here with Raidman as his opponent. But he's already beaten Blinky, so maybe he'll beat Raidman too. We'll see. And then yeah, Blinky against Simi. I don't think we're gonna see Simi's first points this season and this week. Apart from that, Boxer against Bulgur, probably not getting much easier for Bulgur here either. And I actually think sort of the match I'm most interested in how it'll go is Mr. Blue against Verdok, because Mr. Blue hasn't had the strongest of seasons so far. He's had some good games, but most of them have been pretty average, I'd say. And Verdok has had some great games and some average games where he still came out on top. And I think this could be a very close matchup. Maybe not the one with the highest scores or anything, but I really couldn't predict this one at all.
Yeah, definitely. Nakiro, any takes on these matchups for Botswana, week 5?
Yeah, our first against Rainman Mucha would be very interesting and very important for the rest of how the season goes. Especially for Orpheus who have to take Redman then Boxa in the next week. So yeah, he's gonna have to show what he got pretty much. Yeah, apart from that, yeah, I agree with Calamity that Mr. Blue versus Weird Dog was an interesting one. Yeah, Bulgur versus Boxa. Bulgur, I don't know how much Bulgur is practicing for this competition, but for now I would say not a lot. So I'm expecting Boxa to win there, but I'm supporting my fellow Frenchman, of course.
Yeah, very nice. Well, let's shift over to Division 2, and we'll see Calamity's name on this one. Yeah, a really interesting set of matchups. Lots of very, very close wins, under 1,000 points for several of them. Nakiro, I'll give you first crack at Division 2 here.
Yeah, pretty lower score here. What struck me the most is the score of Shumi. I would have expected him to, I don't know, be seeing him in the last season really crushing it. I would have expected him to do better, but week after week, it seems to struggle. So maybe he doesn't have time to practice that much anymore. I don't know. So I think Thor would be happy to take a win there. Again, Pastek versus Calamity. So yeah, Calamity win there. And again, Pastek is still struggling in this division, struggling to get his first point. Other than that, yeah, Guello still going on with with good performance, I would say. And Pluki, of course, with almost a perfect score against Clyde here.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, Calamity, a pretty narrow win for you and a draw for Max and M the Basement, but overall scores a little bit rougher. The seed a bit tougher, perhaps, or just a lot of wrong ways in one round or two in Iceland.
I wouldn't really say the seed as a whole was a lot tougher.
Mm.
From what I remember of the Division 1 seed just had one difficult round and then four relatively easy ones. The Division 2 seed wasn't that difficult. I just had one annoying round where I dropped quite a few points. Pastek had pretty much the same, but in a different round, and he dropped a few points more, well, leading me to a win. I don't know where everyone else dropped that many points. Yeah, Toll getting a bit lucky there against Shumi. In Division 2 this season, generally all of the promoted players struggling a bit. Patriots, of course, up there as well with a pretty heavy loss against Guelo. And Max at least getting some points, but he's getting unlucky as well because his 25 points that he's lacking towards Basement is the difference between 2 points for Basement and 1 point for Max, because they just made it to the cutoff where Basement was the 6th best score and Max was the 7th best score.
Oh,
So no bonus point for Max there. Yeah, Pluki still, I think he had a weak first week. But since then, he's been pretty much at the top of the table in every single week. If not first, then at least somewhere in the top 3 generally. Guelo as well. Yeah, just continuing to put up great scores. Schludi is the same. Pretty much Schludi had the exact same trajectory as Pluki, where he didn't do too well in week 1. And since then, he's just won every game. And yeah,
yeah, not much else to say. Pretty decent scores and players kind of showing us a bit of what they've got. Some underperformers from last season doing a little bit better, at least this season so far. And my comment for the table is that, well, if it was anything, it was a bit like Monaco in the sense that there was no passing at all in this week. Just pretty much everybody staying the same. Schludi and Real Clyde, the only ones really adjusting. Pretty much everybody on top kept winning, and the people down kept suffering some defeats, even unlucky a draw for Max, unfortunately. Nakiro.
Yeah, I agree. There's a pretty strong divide already between 7th and 8th place. And other than that, the top is really competitive and is living up with what we saw about Division 2 so far, even last year. So it's not going to get easier. Pluki, I see that Pluki is the only one putting on a perfect score. And yeah, other than that, Basement Calamity at the top, doing really great and undefeated. And it's gonna be really tough for our Frenchman, Pastegache, if he keeps his losing streak, sort of. I don't know if he's really training that much for this competition as well. But I hope he managed to pick up his first win at least in the next few weeks. Yeah, and other than that, I would say, yeah, Shumi, I would have expected him to be maybe a bit yeah, toward the upper section of the table, considering his performance of last season. So yeah, other than that, yeah, very competitive division, and I'm excited to see what's come next.
Yeah, Calamity, you mentioned that the promoted players are not having the most easy of times. So Shumi, Max, and Patriots all there in 8th, 9th, and 10th towards the bottom there, and pretty much veterans of the division, you, Baseman, Guelo, all towards the top in this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's got anything to do really with seniority, as you could call it. But yeah, the even worse thing I think for Shumi and Patriots especially is that their only wins so far came from a yellow card for their opponents. So they haven't necessarily even earned a win for themselves yet, although at the yellow card, Shumi got like 24,995. So he's earned that win. Patriots kind of got lucky in that sense. Max so far out of those 3 has shown, I think, the best performances. Just lacking a bit of consistency. Sometimes doesn't quite get it right in his own seed. But I think he seems to be the best bet of making it out of that sort of lower table there. Apart from that, yeah, very close at the top, just 2 points between first and sixth. So there's nothing at all decided yet. And anything could really happen. We've got still 7 weeks to go, and with some very interesting maps coming up as well. Yeah, I've talked a bit with Pastek like a week or two ago at this point, and yeah, he forgot to play 1 week, and then he played Iceland like on the day the maps came out. So yeah, I don't think he's practicing too much for it, but maybe he did tell me he's still having fun. So that's good, and maybe once we get to the later parts of the season and he realizes, oh, I need some points now, maybe he'll start practicing a bit for some of the later maps.
Let's take a look at their matchups for week 5 in Botswana. And yeah, a couple of top of the table bouts here. Nakiro, Calamity, and Tall facing off each other, as well as Schluty and Geoguessr Wizard. So yeah, a couple of important matches.
Yeah, indeed. I'm really excited to see how this turned out. It's not going to be easier for Shumi, who is going to be up against Baseman, who has a strong showing for until now. Yeah, Rookie against Patriots would be interesting. Even though I'm expecting a win again for Pluki here, but who knows how it turns out. Yeah, and Pastek against Wheelclyde, maybe he can pick up a win there. Who knows? Depending if he start practicing. And yeah, very interesting match all around.
Yeah, Calamity. Yeah, big bout against Tall Impala coming up this week in a very interesting map too.
Yeah, and the important thing to note here is that Tall and M. the Baseman were two of those players that were really into the Explorer mode once it came out. And Botswana was one of the more annoying countries in that one, famously terrible to pinpoint. So those two have quite a lot of experience already playing those Botswana seeds. Obviously, we're playing map as map and not the official map, so it's at least they're not going to be filled with repeats for them. But yeah, I'm expecting a very hard game against Toll. I've also seen he's been practicing Botswana a lot because he really wants to win this game against me. Yeah, I just hope my goal for this week has been to get a bonus point. That was the target. If I can beat him, that's great. But if not, I want a bonus point, then I'll be happy with that. For the other matches, yeah, I'm really excited about Schluty against Geoguessr Wizard. I think that could be a very, very interesting game and could be quite decisive actually going into the rest of the season. They're so far still very close together there at the top. And those are always the kind of games where, you against the bottom of the table, you're supposed to win. And against the players that are right next to you in the table, you kind of need to win if you want to be above them. So they've so far both been very good this season, and I'm excited to see how that one turns out. And yeah, the other matches are all kind of favoring one of the two. Patriot's gonna have a pretty rough week again, presumably against Pluki, unless he's for some reason a god in Botswana. Teskotak against Max, it's going to be interesting, actually. It could be, at least, because Teskotak so far, I think his 0 points are underselling him a bit. He had that one yellow card in week 3. He had a decent score in Japan against me, and he has quite a lot of experience in Division 2 as well. So I'm expecting him to pick up points at one point, and Max definitely can't underestimate him. But I do think if Max puts in a great performance, then Teskotak is going to have a rough time. And the same pretty much goes for Pastek against Clyde. Clyde so far has been just very consistently getting decent scores. Nothing really outstanding so far this season, but always just around that sort of 4th, 5th, 6th place in the division. And Pastek so far hasn't really had any outstanding performances yet, but we'll see if that might change this season, this week.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to Division 3. And their results and Calamity, kind of the big story here. Skydiving Ferret withdrawing for kind of real life reasons, just a little bit too busy and can't give it its due attention. So he thinks it's better just to drop out rather than put up some meager scores against his opponents, much to the delight of Hugo, who did not have the best week at all, Calamity.
Yeah, that's definitely a relief for Hugo. He probably wouldn't have had any points with with that score otherwise. Yeah, a bit of a shame for Ferret, but yeah, I'm sure if he eventually gets less busy, he'll come back in a future season. Probably now. I think he's now banned anyway for season 5, but we'll see if he comes back for season 6. Apart from that, the thing is he had no points anyway so far, so it doesn't really affect the table much.
Yeah.
Just a bit of good luck for Hugo this week. The other matches, we had another great score from Paulinho actually, but against Freckles this season, it's hard. And
yeah, Freckles really showing up.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's kind of done what he's done in all the seasons so far and put some great performances in. But he hasn't had any weak performances yet that he's always strewn in here or there in the last few seasons. So for Paulinho, it's still a fantastic result to even get a draw against him, and obviously the bonus point as well for the second best score of the division. LCN losing the American Derby against Barry, which kind of puts them closer together again in the table. Benica, not the greatest result, third worst performance, but still better than Seppo, so he'll take his 3 points and be happy with them. Polybos continuing his win streak as well. He's kind of had not always the best performances, but he's just always better than his opponents, and that seems to be enough at the moment. And Radox, yeah, unfortunately, another loss there. It was never going to be easy for him in a pinpoint-heavy map like Iceland, but I mean, with 20,000 points, it's quite clear pinpointing wasn't the only issue here. And it's probably not going to be much better in Botswana either. But we'll see how it goes there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that American Derby, also the Division 4 Derby with 2 promoted players in Barry coming on top of that. Yeah, Nakiro, any thoughts on the Division 3 matchups here?
Yeah, what a shame for Demfleckle and Paulinho, who cancel out each other with the 2 best score here. Other than that, Hugo would be happy to take a win against Skydiving Ferret, considering his place on the table right now. Well, I don't know if he would be very happy with that, considering it's his opponent withdraw, but yeah, it's still points. Other than that, a bit of a shame for Radox, but I'm happy to see that in this division he's able to. He's not always toward the bottom of the table and able to pick up some win. Barry Fishy Bear, yeah, the American Derby. I would have expected him to be a better score from these 2 players, and knowing them and how good they can perform. So I don't really know what happened there. Especially SCN was, I think it was in Division 4B last season, and I've seen him put in really great score throughout the season. So I'm a bit surprised of his score right now. Yeah, and Benica Seppo, yeah, Benica would be indeed just getting out with barely under 20k, and yeah, a bit disappointed with for Seppo here, but I'm expecting maybe to rebound in the next few weeks.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at the table after 4 weeks. And unlike the Division 2 table, a lot of shuffling, mostly having to do with that it is very, very competitive, very close between almost all of the competitors. There's a bit of a lead with Freckles and Orbach at the top, but everybody else within about 3 or 4 points of each other, all the way down to Hugo. So even he has a good shot at getting out of that relegation spot, especially now that Skydiving Ferret has withdrawn from the competition. Benica's very small margin win season stayed 9th, but at least prevents him from dropping any further down from that one Calamity.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this one for me is that despite how close it is, especially from 5th down to 9th, I actually have a pretty clear picture about how I think the season and the table is going to shape up. kind of so far Freckles looks unbeatable. The thing is, these things can always change from one week to the next. Maybe suddenly next week something happens at work and he's too busy to practice anymore, and then suddenly he drops off. But if we assume every one of these players will keep those performances roughly at the same level, I think we're going to see Freckles ahead of Polyboss, or Boca as he's called in this table. Because as I said before, Polyboss kind of just so far he's beaten everyone, but he's beaten them with average to good scores and not with the scores that Freckles has put up. Not that those count for anything at the end of the season, other than score difference, but still. Behind that, I actually see Paulinho, who's so far had some great scores. I think he's got the second highest total score of the division. Ahead of presumably WTF. The thing is with WTF, he's already had his free win against Ferret. And pretty much everyone down from 6th to 9th, I think, hasn't had that yet. So they will probably catch up to that again, to those 9 points that WTF has. And his scores so far haven't been amazing either. He's mostly gotten some close wins, all around those 20,000, 21,000 points mark. So I'm expecting Paulinho in 3rd, and then a big fight for that 4th place to decide who's going to have that one shot at the end of the season to get themselves promoted. And it'll be a close fight for sure. I think Radox has a chance, Barry has a chance, Closed has a chance. Benica so far, I don't think he's really got much of a chance for the promotion fight. He should probably focus more on not getting relegated. Same goes for Hugo and Seppo, obviously. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, it's also worth noting that Paulinho's draw is against Freckles. So he has already faced one of his toughest opponents in the division, and has kind of a easier track road ahead of him in the next coming weeks for that. But yeah, anything you notice here, Nakiro?
Well, it's I was expecting personally for Polyboss to be on top, because he was a very strong opponent in Division 4 last season. So I'm not surprised that he's where he is here. I mean, I believe that Barry Fisher-Bear and Close will be higher, especially considering their number of aces. I think they are a very strong player, and they surely could be upper in the table. Yeah, Paulinho, really interesting newcomer this season, surprising me week after week. And very, very, very strong showing. And I don't know where he can be. I don't know him that much yet, but I'm really excited to see what he has to offer in the next season, next week. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect segue. Thank you for that. Let's move over to those fixtures in week 5 in Botswana. And yeah, a couple of tough matches. Barry Fishy Barrett getting a nice little bye week, what was supposed to have been an American derby. But yeah, LCN taking on Paulinho, Benica taking on Freckles, or Boca taking on Seppo Calamity. It's pretty much top of the table versus bottom. The only real equal match here up is Hugo and Radox, and that could be a really interesting one to watch as well.
Well, you say equal for Hugo and Radox. It's still 6th against 10th in the table, and Hugo already had his bye week pretty much last week. So I wouldn't really call it equal based on the standings in the table, but it could be interesting purely based on their skill, because as we've said, well, not quite enough yet, but Radox is bad at pinpointing. We gotta say it a few more times.
Just one more time, just in case we didn't say it enough. Right?
Just one more time. And Botswana usually, although it kind of feels a bit like Guatemala, where if you just played once, it looks really difficult, but once you've played it a couple of times, it gets significantly easier. And when you've got 4 minutes, usually you're probably gonna find where you are, unless you've got a really annoying or rough location in there. And in that sense, pinpointing might be really important for Botswana, and Hugo might have a bit of an advantage there. Apart from that, yeah, as you said, we've got some pretty clear favorites here. Polyboss against Seppo and Freckles against Benica should be relatively one-sided. I think Closed against WTF is another interesting matchup here. I actually see Closed maybe as a slight favorite there. So far, he's had only one win, but in all of the other 3 weeks, he's got a bonus point. So he's shown that he's always going to be in the top half of the scorers. And WTF, as I said earlier during the table talk, he's not really impressed me that much yet. So it could definitely be an interesting match and maybe not the outcome you might expect looking at the table there.
Nice. Yeah, Nakiro.
I'm expecting a very interesting matchup. Paulinho against LCN will be also interesting for the rest of the competition. Whoever win would I wouldn't say guarantee a place to a qualifier or direct promotion, but would definitely widen the gap, I would say. Barry for the American Derby, expecting clearly. Oh, well, skydiving is not playing yet.
Yeah.
He's not playing anymore. I just realized, yeah. So yeah, just and Hugo against Radox also would be an interesting one to see. Even though, yeah, as you mentioned, even though he's 6 against 10th, but I think those players are relatively equal in terms of levels, so can end up really close. And Ordoka against Seppo, yeah, I'm favoring Ordoka here, obviously. Yeah. Freckle Benica, yeah, seems also a bit one-sided, but yeah, who knows?
Nice. Well, let's move on to Division 4 and their dual groups. Division 4A finds yourself, Nakiro, here, and a very rough week against Hidekmi. Both of you not having the best of scores, and unfortunately for you, coming out on the worst end of that one for that.
Yeah. That's I don't know really what happened there. I kind of have a rough. I mean, all my loss so far was about just one round. I basically screw up, and this one was not an exception. So yeah, unfortunately for my teammate Edikmi, he managed to pick up a win. So at least there's that. But yeah, I guess some nervosity or not unconfidence lately. But I'm expecting to. I hope I will catch up. Other than that, Faraburn, my other teammate Faraburn, managed to pick up a win against Machetley, who is getting stronger every week. And a great score for Norsal also, who managed to pick up his first win of the season against H-Town, which is something you would be happy about. And Lunacy getting a bit of an underwhelming result here against Exol, which is wasn't what I expected. I would have expected a draw here, and Exol keep going with a very strong performance every week.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Calamity, not the best of scores in Iceland for Division 4A at least.
Yeah, a lot of those point drops for both Nakiro and Hedikmi as well came from one round on the southern coast of Iceland that doesn't really have a lot of information along pretty much the entire stretch of road that you have access to. There isn't one sign that really points you in the right direction in regards to the general area you're looking at. Obviously, you can see the coast, so you know you're on the southern half, but there's no signs that are like, okay, this town is so many kilometers away, or this side road is here and is called this, and therefore it's an understandable point loss there for a lot of these people. Yeah, great score from Neusel, who's showing some signs of life. Obviously, unfortunate there for H-Town, who started out the season strong, but not not a great last 2 weeks, I think. Hexalt with another fantastic performance. He's looking more and more likely to be one of the few players who will get promoted to Division 3 next season. There's only one guaranteed spot in either division here in Division 4, but he's looking pretty set for that spot so far. Apart from that, Headache Me will just take those 3 points against Nakiro. Not a great score for both of them, but it's 3 points, yeah. Pork Steaks with another great performance, though. He's had a pretty terrible first 2 weeks, I think it was, and since then he's had some great performances. So he's also showing why he was in the upper half of the table last season. Nakiro also said it. Win for Faraban. Again, not the most impressive scores in this matchup, but just about eked it out there with 238 points, I think, there.
Very nice. We'll take a look at the Division 4A table. And yet Hexalt with his perfect game is way at the top. Yeah, Lucy Echo, they're dropping down a point, having not the best of times with losing to Hexalt, top of the table matchup there. But other than that, not too much really going on. Just a couple people dropping down a bit for this one, and it's still pretty close here in Division 4A, Nakiro.
Yeah, indeed. I've still got, even if I'm the bottom right now, which I wouldn't expect it to be by starting this season, I think it's really close. Apart from Excel, who is, I think, pretty much guaranteed to be promoted from 2 to even to the bottom. It's not done for Noisol. He can still manage to. I don't know if mathematically could maybe reach the playoff, but very interesting competition this on Division 4A. Enigman Faraban also very close to a promotion for Faraban, who hasn't a strong showing in the late week, but I know that he told me that he doesn't train as much as last season. So that's expected that he is slightly underperforming here, but still managed to get 13 aces, which is quite impressive. Far more than anyone apart Exalt. Pastichi seems to wake up a bit, even though he lost against Faraban this week, but he gets stronger every week. Very interesting to see how it's gonna shape up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, Calamity, a lot of arrows on that screen there, but the points still very close. Only 4 points separating Hexalt in first from H-Town in seventh.
Yeah, and we're only in week 4 out of 9 so far, so mathematically everything's still possible, because we're not at the halfway point yet. But yeah, this is probably the closest table. While it doesn't have as big of a tight group as some others, like we've seen the 2 points between first and sixth in Division 2, or the 5 players on 6 points in Division 3. But it's the closest both in terms of gap between first and 10th, as well as this division has 6 players with a score difference between minus 2,500 and plus 2,500, and no other division has even more than 2. So that just shows again how close even some of those results have been. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call Hexalt promoted just yet, but yeah, he certainly looks to be the favorite going forward. Out of the players behind him, yeah, just purely basing it off of what I know and what I've seen so far, I would have said I think Faraban is the only one in terms of skill who could rival him. But as Nakiro said, if he's not going to practice that much this season, I think he might struggle as well and might not end up being really able to challenge Hexalt, as long as Hexalt keeps his performances up, of course. Apart from that, yeah, it definitely is still very close. You can see their Pork Steaks with his minus 14,000 score difference from the first 2 weeks. That might come back to bite him later. But apart from that, yeah, definitely anything can still happen. We've seen some more games out of the newcomers now as well to be able to judge them a bit better. Solar Sensei seems like a solid player, but I don't think he's really going to be able to challenge for promotion. And Lunacy definitely is one of the likely candidates to fight for that second or third spot.
Indeed. Well, let's see what Botswana has in store for Division 4A and how few countries we have in here. It's amazing we don't have a derby in this one. Everybody facing somebody from a different country, Lunacy and Nakiro. So yeah, Nakiro, not the easiest of opponents to go up against in Botswana. Hexalt also taking on Noisel. So pretty much the top of the table versus the bottom there.
Yeah, very strong opponent for me this week, but I start to try to train Botswana, of course, and I think I'm pretty confident I could put up a good score with enough training. If as Calamity said previously, it's a map that it goes easier as you train. It can be a bit intimidating at first, so I'm expecting player that tend to train a lot to put up a great performance here. Yeah, apart from that, yeah, Exalt against Noisel, it's not gonna be easier for Noisel, and it has to pick up some point, and it would be quite difficult here. Another interesting matchup is probably H-Town against Pachetli, 6 against 7. Who can be, I think both players could win here potentially. We see that Pachetli is I don't know, the best start, I think, in this competition, but is capable of putting on good performance here and there. So we'll see how he perform against H-Town. And again, yeah, Porstic against Headicme would be an interesting one. And for the last one, I would favor my mate Faraban here against Sora Sensei, but even though, because I know Sora Sensei also is unable to train maybe as much as he wanted, since he's not a pro player. So I would favor Faraban, but who knows how it can turn out.
Yeah, Clement, any matches you're looking forward to here?
There's a couple of interesting ones here. Yeah, Nakiro could definitely do his compatriots a big favor there by beating Lunacy, and eventually, if he manages to do it, we might see 3 Frenchmen at the top next week. I do think that probably out of all those matchups, Pork Steaks against Headicme might be the one closest together in terms of skill. Pashtetli H-Town might be as well, although I think I might favor Pashtetli slightly, because I do think he puts in a bit more practice than H-Town. Hexalt, obviously, in his duel against Noisel, even though Noisel just had a great performance in Iceland, it's kind of a must-win for Hexalt, but at the same time, those must-win games, maybe that adds a little bit of pressure when you know, okay, you're playing against bottom of the table, you need to win these points. And maybe you make an unforced error where you just kind of a bit under pressure. Apart from that, yeah, Faraban has to be the slight favorite against Solar Sensei at least. And yeah, definitely an interesting week though. Lunacy against Nakiro is definitely going to be interesting to see as well. Just seeing the score there and who can come on top of that one. And I wouldn't be surprised about a draw there either if the seed lends itself to it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good luck against Lunacy there, Nakiro. Yeah, well, our results from the other side of the table in Division 4B saw some pretty interesting matches. Again, the score is not as high as we've seen in some other divisions because, as Clemeny mentioned, that one round in sort of the South. But yeah, very important wins by the skin of their teeth, so to speak, for Tychonicus and Steal This Nick Calamity.
Yeah, they both had a bit of a slip up there. Not the greatest of scores, but still no shakeups at the top. They came out with wins nonetheless. Soviet and Punt Noob with the worst and second worst score of the division there. Not making use of their opponent's errors. Apart from them, very important wins, of course, for you and Jake as well in those duels. The 2 duels this week that were mid-table against mid-table, essentially. And obviously, on the other side of the coin, all the more meaningful losses for Wakerlock and Fios, who actually both had decent scores if you look at it. both of them would have beat Tyconicus and Steal the Snick this week. But unfortunately, that's just how the cookie crumbles. You just play who you're up against, and a good score doesn't always get you the points. Same, of course, goes for Edward as well, who had another decent performance. I think got a bonus point for that one as well, but obviously against Diesel, who yet again put in the highest score of the division, no chance for him there.
Mhm. Yeah, what's really funny is that when I was playing my game, Wakelock was actually on the top 3 of the people who had played the seed. And so I was like, oh no. And then in that one bad round, I didn't do too great, was pretty dejected, but then I managed to recover in round 5. And then when I hit that check the game stat, I realized, oh, he had a worse round 4 than I did. And so it was literally that one round where he dropped a couple extra 100 points that opened up the door for me. And I'm pretty sure that happened to quite a few people, that they were doing quite well. And then depending on how poorly they did on that one round, decided the entire match for that. But yeah, Nakiro, any comments on Division 4B?
Yeah, congratulations for your win there,
Thank you.
Zotomo. And yeah, you have a pretty good performance considering this round 4, which was awful with no information at all. And so it's not surprising to see 21, 22K-ish score here. And that makes the performance from Geoguessr even more important, even more surprising, I would say. Yeah, a bit underwhelming from Soviet Spy, which hasn't the greatest of the season until now. Jake Lyons putting on a great score against Theos as well. Yeah, a pretty decent score around, but not, apart from Diesel, not so great considering the seed, I would say. Yeah.
Well, then let's take a look at this table. And yeah, quite interesting. The fact that not too many people moving, Pont Noob and Theos, the only 2 switching spots. But yeah, Calamity, 6 through 10, all on 1 and 3 for this one.
Yeah, struggling a bit down there. You can see pretty much the only differences between them are the bonus points given out, of which Edward has acquired 2 and Theos has 1. No real big changes in the table this week with all 3 top players winning their games. What's interesting to look at is that Jake actually has the second highest total score. So I think he's definitely the favorite to move up into that promotion race once one of the players up there decides to drop any points, if they decide to drop any points. Yeah, I think you, Zotomo, you're pretty set for sort of a mid-table position here, maybe upper mid-table, something like 4th or 5th, maybe 6th if it goes badly. Yeah, I mean, I think you should be happy still. It's a strong division for sure. And as I said, like at the start of the season, looking at all of these players, I think probably 4th or 5th is even higher than I would have predicted you to finish. So pretty good so far. And no matter what happens, no one can take that perfect game away from you.
That's true. I did get a perfect game in a world map, so not too bad. And I also screwed up my home map. So it's been a heck of a season. We're only week 4. So yeah. Yeah, very nice. Well, let's take a look at the matchups that we've got for us here in Botswana. And yeah, I've got a really tough match against Tyconicus. Pretty much going to be another one of those. Well, if I win, it's great. If not, well, I'm back to where I probably should be. But really, the match we're kind of looking at here is Steal This Nick and Diesel Nakiro.
Yeah, indeed, both very strong player. So yeah, it's definitely the big one here. I don't know which I would favor. Maybe Geoguessr, considering this last week performance. But even though Iceland is definitely not the same as Botswana. Again, yeah, you against Tyconicus. I think you shouldn't necessarily underestimate yourself. You show up that you're capable of putting some good score and doing a perfect one, even if it was on a world map. So. Who knows who can came up on top here, even though I would favor slightly Tyconicus here. And then again, I don't know about Wakel can see us, so he can Yeah, I see that Wakelock and both didn't have the strongest performance lately. So I don't really know which one I would favor here. Yeah, and I, or other than that, yeah, did I mention Jack Lyons and Soviet Spy? I forgot.
No.
Yeah, I would favor Jack Lyon on this one as well. I think he can definitely do the upper in the table and fight for that promotion spot.
Yeah, Calamity. Two former Division 3 players face off against each other in Wakelock and Theos here.
Yeah, they know each other well at this point. They were in season 4 together in Division 4 together in season 1 before they then both got promoted, and then eventually both got relegated again. I think Wakelock got relegated a season earlier than Theos, and now they meet up again, and they're in another relegation fight against each other. 7th against 10th there. This is definitely an important matchup for both of them. And I think I favor Theos slightly, but it's very hard to predict in Botswana. Technically, Theos is the closest to Botswana out of anyone in terms of just where they come from. So maybe he's got a bit of an advantage there. Although I think he comes from the south coast of South Africa, so he's still quite far away from Botswana. Steal the Snick against Diesel is obviously the matchup where most of the attention will go to this week. It's the second matchup between the top 3 after Tychonicus against Diesel ended in a draw. And we'll see if we get another draw this time, or if finally someone of them loses a game. Yeah, Jake definitely the favorite against Soviet, who's not had the greatest of seasons so far. And I think Botswana also not really where I would expect Soviet to do particularly well in. Yeah, Zotomo, you're going to have a rough time against Tychonicus. But yeah, he's shown some weakness for the first time in Iceland, so maybe you can put some dent into his armor as well. And then we've got Punt Noob against Edward. That could be a very close matchup too. I think they're both decent players who I expect to finish somewhere like 6th, 7th in that sort of range. So I think, judging by the current position in table as well, this is going to be another important matchup for the two of them.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at Division 5A and their results, and a yellow card for GRH in this week. Not playing in time for that one. But other than that, some interesting matchups here. Actually, I wrote my notes in the wrong place. Never mind. That's in Division 5B. Other than that, the score is doing a whole lot better, but also a few people doing a little bit worse. Not a very good score by Marcus Fenn Calamity.
Yeah, his season isn't going very well at all. For GRH, actually, I just wanted to look up, but I couldn't quite find it. Whether it was actually his highest score of the season with his yellow card. Let me just quickly check one thing, because that could be quite interesting. But let me actually talk about the rest while I'm doing it. Hayumine, well, the one time Geoguessr actually puts up a great score. He still gets beaten by Hayumine, who got the best score of the division. And I have just looked it up. Yes, this 15,421 points GRH got for his yellow card is actually the best score he's gotten so far this season, which is a bit ironic. Well, let's just hope he comes back and plays out the rest of the season. The thing is, he's probably pretty much guaranteed to drop out anyway at the end of the season, because so far he's not really shown anything that would make me think, he's going to pick up enough points to get out of the bottom 3. But still, you still want to play out the rest of the season, right? Sebkist keeps winning. Kiribati keeps winning as well. I think at this point, I can't just say, he's going to drop off eventually anymore. So far, he hasn't. He's got some great performances after that first week. And he keeps performing, and he seems set to fight for that promotion spot. Yeah, Sky Blue will take those 3 points against Marcus. And yeah, Ollie, I think with his first loss of the season against Sebkist, which is not a massive surprise with Sebkist's performances so far, but yeah, obviously puts Ollie a bit further down the table.
Yeah, Nakiro, any thoughts on this here, especially in Geoguessr and Niles?
Yeah, very very tough for GRH7 here against Niels, who put up I think his best score for the entire season so far. So props to him. Yeah, Joker against Jamie. I think Joker would beat himself for that few pony lost that could manage that could give him a draw. Yeah, very strong opponents against each other actually. As we can see, Ollie and Sepia was pretty close. And yet again, yeah, Kiribati, yeah, apart from this disastrous first week, is keep on giving, I would say. And yeah, I don't know if Marcus and GRH can put up some points here. I hope they would, just to keep a bit motivated to play. But yeah, not the best season for both of those players so far.
Yeah, well, if anything, you always kind of turn into the can you play spoiler for somebody else's dreams, right? Like, oh, I can't win, but maybe I can stop you from winning, and that can give you a bit of motivation. So always something to play for, even if you're not having the best of seasons. Yeah, let's take a look at the table, and it is pretty drastic. The top four or so pretty well-footed at the top, and the bottom still barely picking up any points in somebody like Mr. Fish there, Calamity.
Yeah, the matchups of this week have pretty much guaranteed our bottom three there. It would take any sort of massive surprises there to see a change, as I expect Geoguessr as well, who's currently in 7th, to still pick up a lot of more points towards the end of the season. So I would say for anyone to get out of those bottom three places, they would need to at least still pick up 9 points. And that means 3 wins, and so far it's been 4 weeks. None of them have won a game yet, so I'm not expecting that to happen. At the top, it's still very close. Just 3 points between Kiribati in 1st and Ollie in 5th. Yeah, a lot of things can still happen there. I don't think this division is going to be decided before the last 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah. Nakiro, any comments on Division 5A's table?
Yeah, as Calamity mentioned, for the bottom three, it's gonna be difficult to even stay motivated since the gap is getting wider every week. Yeah, and very tough competition at the top. It reminds me a bit of Division 2 in that sense. Like they are very, I would say, 3 very strong players, and the 2 Germans and Kiribati. Niels hasn't really, in the last few weeks, not the best score, but he managed to get a win anyway. But this week on Iceland, he shows that he got the basics at least, and he can on a relatively easy country or map manage to put on great scores. So I will wonder what he's gonna do next on Botswana, which is a more practice-heavy map than Iceland for sure.
Definitely. Well, finally, after all these divisions, we have a French derby for you here. Nakiro, Geoguessr versus Nils in this one. But other Calamity, a top of the division matchup here in Yemeni and Kiribati up against each other. And yeah, Marcus Fenn and Mr. Fish, one of them will get a win, or watch them get a draw and prove me wrong.
Watch them both get yellow cards.
Oh, no.
No, yeah.
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that.
We're expecting a win here, and just from what I've seen so far, I think Mr. Fish is the more likely to pull out a win here. He seemed like the one who's at least got some hope left of maybe getting out of there. Yeah, you already mentioned Geoguessr against Niels as the French derby. Could be a very interesting one. If Geoguessr can manage to win this one, he might be back in it a bit at least to keep himself out of those relegation playoff spots of 6th and 7th place. Because looking at, as we'll see in Division 5B over there, the relegation playoff might also be pretty difficult this season. I think last season it was essentially just be here and play your seed and you'll automatically stay up because everyone else was either red carded or didn't play. But it could be quite interesting this season. And yeah, Yemeni against Kiribati, obviously most interesting match there at the top between first and third. And yeah, it could go either way, really. Will be interesting to see how that ends. If Kiribati wins it, it might already put him in a position where it'll be difficult for anyone else to get him away out of the top three, at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Any thoughts on the French derby here, Nakiro, and the other matches?
Yeah, well, I think I would favor Geoguessr here, same as Calamity, because we know that he is a strong player. Not that Niels is bad, but I think from what we've seen from both of them so far, I would definitely favor Geoguessr here. Yeah, Arjamin and Kiribati definitely the match of the week here. First against the third. Very also Sky Blue versus Sebia. I think I would of course favor Scabiers here, but I think maybe we can expect a surprise from Sky Blue. I don't know. I get a feeling that this player can put on some good performance here and there. I don't think he showed that yet, but who knows? And yeah, Mr. Fish again, Marcus Fent definitely need a win here to keep on upping for being able to maybe not being relegated automatically on this division.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at our final results from Iceland here. We were in Division 5B for this one. And yeah, 2 red cards means quite a few players getting a bye week in this one, Nakiro.
Yeah, a bit disappointing to see, especially from that one. Both of them actually, because I know Vita Nova is a good player, so I'm a bit disappointed to see him go that way. Other than that, yeah, really strong showing from Lab and Greb, who is very, very close to the 25k mark. Unfortunately for Danny Brown, and Bombadil and Vincenzo also pretty good score on that week. Yeah, a bit of a weak showing from Clemens and against Isroy Blade. Yeah, other than that, yeah, very unfortunate about those 2 red cards. Nothing much else to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Calamity, that top of the table matchup, Levon Greb coming out on top.
Yeah, beating Danny Blondes there with a great performance, and now bar any surprises, it kind of decides the race for P1 early, but we'll talk about that during the table. We joked last week about how Vitanova just wanted to play Japan, and it now really seems like he played Japan. He was like, yes, this tournament is great. And then he went into week 2 and played the scene and was like, this isn't Japan. And then he left. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah. Kind of Division 5B turning into what we saw. Which division was it last season? It was 4A, right? That had 3 red cards towards the end. I mean, the players who would otherwise be further down the table won't complain about it, because that's 2 automatic relegation spots already taken care of, and you just kind of need to stay out of that last one. Nabend will take the 3 points there. Still waiting for his first actual win. Same for Clemens, actually, who also benefited from one of those red cards retroactively, I think. Yeah, great performance from Vincenzo as well. 24,800 might... Yeah, it is actually. I looked it up. I wrote it down in my notes and then forgot about writing it down. I looked it up. That is his best performance in Reddit League to date. He's never had 24,800 points before, so that's a great score from him, and shows some fight in him to keep himself out of those spots down there at the bottom. And yeah, Troy with a pretty dominant win against Clemens, who seems to be struggling a bit right now.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at this table, as Calamity mentioned. And yeah, those 2 red cards do take up the bottom of the table, making things very nice for Clemens and Abend there at the bottom. Yeah, nice wins for Vincenzo and Troy, keep them up towards the top and safe And no movement in the top three, despite Danny Blonz's loss. Xander not able to nip any points off of him in the positions there. Yeah, so no, sorry, Nakiro, your thoughts on the table?
Yeah, I think no, in terms of total points, nothing is really set in stone yet. Everyone can still manage to get at least to promotion, but in reality, I'm expecting Laban and Danny Bros to keep going with a strong performance. Xander as well. We just barely lose one of this match. Vincenzo, happy to see him manage getting a good score. I know I think he was relegated. No, it was in Division 5 last season. And yeah, I think he can definitely improve. So props to him.
Very nice. Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, Danny Blonde's still by far the highest total score, but that's of little use to him now that he's lost against Laban Greb, because the perfect game of Laban Greb as well means that effectively Danny Blonde and Xander have to make up 4 points if they want to topple Laban Greb from his spot, and I just don't really see that happening. I'll explain more about why when we talk about the fixtures as well. Apart from that, yeah, with the 2 red cards, only Narbin is currently in a direct relegation spot, and I think, judging by the performances we've seen so far out of these players over the course of the season, I think him and Clemens will will decide who will be directly relegated and who will get another chance. I've seen some pretty strong performances from everyone that's above them, so I don't see them jumping over any of Bombadil, Vincenzo, or Troy. Not even speaking about Xander and Danny Blondes there. Yeah, and the mid table is still very, very close together. Purely based on the total score, you'd expect Danny Blondes for sure to be one of the 2 players who would then go into the promotion playoff. But behind that, it could really be anyone who gets that second spot there.
Definitely, indeed. And yeah, let's take a look at these Division 5B fixtures. And there are 2 Italians are on bye weeks. But yeah, Xander versus Laban Greb, another top of the table matchup, Nakiro.
Yeah, indeed. Very strong player. Even though I would maybe slightly favor Laban Greb here. Not probably because I don't know Xander very well, so but maybe it's closer than I imagine it could be. Especially if both of them are training a lot for this competition. As we say, Botswana is a very heavy training map, so we can expect, I think, a draw here maybe. Naben against Troy could be interesting as well. Maybe it's time if Troy managed to pull off the win, it could really shaping up the ranking a bit. Other than that, Bombadil against Clemens. I don't know where these 2 play very well, but I guess I would favor Bombadil considering his total score and his last week performance over Clemens.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, Xander against Laban Greb is kind of the last straw here for stopping Laban Greb, because the next 2 weeks for Laban Greb are going to be both bye weeks, which leaves him only with 2 more matchups after this one against Troy and Bombadil. And if he wins this game, I think he's pretty much guaranteed that first spot in the division. Danny Blondes this week can only watch what his opponents do there in that crucial matchup. And in the other 2 matchups, we're kind of deciding relegation spots there. If Nabend and Clemens both lose their games, then what I've said earlier in the table will just become even more true, in that those will be the 2 players who will fight it out for that last spot and that last chance. If either of them wins, that almost already guarantees them that spot. For Clemens more so than for Nabend, because Clemens is currently 1 point ahead. And if both of them win, then it's going to be interesting, because then suddenly that group of players to potentially get relegated is going to increase again by quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So probably even the most important week in Division 5B here.
Yeah, really looking forward to those for that. Well, that wraps it up for our massive look at all of the divisions and the groups that we have. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Take a sneak peek at what we have to come. So let's wrap things up with a little bit of a peek at the map itself. We've been talking about it. We are in Botswana, a very beautiful African country. They're just above South Africa. The author of this map is Mapper himself. Average score, again, pretty low. We saw something like this with Guatemala Calamity, but I guess with all the practice, that's going to go up, especially the play numbers only have been played about 423 times. And there are a couple hundred of locations, but not as many as some of the other maps. So a few things standing out here about Botswana. Some maybe the locations and not normal kind of map played for a lot of these players, Calamity.
Yeah, and between the times where you created this sheet and right now, it's been played 300 times more. And the average
Wow.
score has gone up about 4,000 points to 13,600 by now. So not quite as hard as the average score there makes it look like. And yeah, I didn't actually notice earlier, but 500 plus locations isn't really much. I think from what I've talked about with Schmingo previously, 500 plus is the absolute minimum a map has to have to be eligible for Reddit League. And it definitely lends itself to having some repeats. I know myself, I had, I think 2 repeats so far. And I played, I think, about 10 to 15 seeds. Botswana itself is an interesting map, actually. I said it once before, where I think it's similar to Guatemala in the sense that if you play it a couple of times, it actually gets easier fairly quickly. The main problem you still have is that it's kind of pinpointing hell, where in all of those 723 plays, there has been exactly 1 perfect score in that map. And that comes from Boxer, so good luck everyone else. The main problem there is multifaceted. There are many reasons why it's so tough. Problem A is the map isn't particularly accurate. Lots of side roads going off of main roads aren't there on the map, and some are. So you're kind of there like, you most of the time you can't tell which of those roads actually is on the map and which isn't. Then you just have lots of very long roads that just don't have any side roads at all going through the middle of the country, which leaves you oftentimes having pretty much a 1 kilometer stretch of road, and you know you're somewhere on that road, and then good luck getting within 25 meters. It doesn't happen all that often, I can tell you that much. Despite all of that, the signage isn't actually bad, especially in the divisions where you've got more time. You're usually going to find a sign that is going to tell you, okay, this is the distance to these towns if you're somewhere in a rural location, or if you're somewhere more urban or on one of the bigger roads, you're going to find signs pointing you towards certain cities. It's going to say, like, for example, Francistown that way, Gaborone that way. And usually, if you've got 3.5, 4 minutes, you're going to find some of those signs. For the Division 1 players, it might be a bit more hit or miss. Sometimes going the right direction might pay off. One other problem of Botswana is that it's actually not that diverse landscape-wise. They've got some roads where you can pretty easily tell where you are. The one that follows the Botswana-South Africa coast along the south is very distinctive. And then some, like the one near Kasana in the north, is pretty distinctive. But apart from that, a lot of it kind of looks similar. And another problem is that if you leave the city center and if you go like 5 kilometers outside of any major city, it looks no different than the middle of a desert or the middle of a savanna. And it looks like you could be anywhere in the country again. So apart from that, as I said, there are some areas that are kind of distinctive, but going just off landscapes isn't going to get you very far. And yeah, I think that's most of it. There's one more thing I wrote down where some of these cities, or towns more like, if you go into sort of the very rural areas, some of the names aren't where the actual town is. I've noticed that a few times. Generally, it's not as bad as it is in South Korea, where there's still like population there. Usually you'll just have a name then in the middle of nowhere, and you'll see like a town 5 kilometers over to one side, and you'll be like, well, it's probably that town then. But I have noticed it a few times.
Mhm. Yeah, Nakiro, any comments or tips about Botswana?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because, as we said, very few locations. So you definitely benefit from practicing a lot this map. Also, what might give us some trouble is pinpointing, but also the same for Iceland. The coverage is a bit broken here and there, so that can give you some trouble. I wouldn't necessarily agree that landscape-wise it can be difficult. There's definitely a different feel to it, and with the direction of the road, you can pretty much tell where you are not exactly, because yeah, there's little wide roads that are street view that you can't tell which one exactly. But I think practicing some no moving game here, you can really step up a bit just to get roughly the good area of Botswana. And yeah, otherwise a very interesting country. And I think those who practice a lot would be slightly favored here over those who didn't have time or motivation to.
Definitely, yeah. So get into Botswana, play a few games to learn a few of those big cities, which is kind of what you have to do in every country anyway. But also pay attention to some of those roads that could be really unique places, so you can remember those and put them in your toolkit for the actual match. And yeah, we will see you all in Botswana next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.